Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. And I'm so excited to be here. And I hope that I have a few people that are joining me this evening. I hope I have a few people that are going to join me this evening. Please, once you join in, just say a quick hello and let me know where you're coming from, you're joining in from. I'm so excited to be here again this evening. Thank you for keeping a date with us. Thank you so much for keeping a date with us. If you can hear me, let me know that you can hear me. My name is Chinedu Ore, your partner in proactively raising your children to be outstanding. Can you hear me? If you can, please let me know. Let me know where you're connecting from. And I'm so excited to have you all here. So we are still on the session on understanding our children. In this month of July, I had said earlier that what we'll be doing is basically understanding our children, because I believe that it's a very key aspect in raising our children to be outstanding. Because if we don't understand our children, we'll not be able to connect with our children. And we're not able to connect with our children, we'll not be able to influence them, we'll not be able to discipline them. So that is why understanding our children is very important. So on this journey so far, we had talked last week. Excuse me, I'm just trying to connect with one or two other people. So on this journey, we had started last week talking about understanding our children's love language as being foundational in our journey to understanding our children. If by any chance you didn't join in last week, please, I'll encourage you to try to catch that video. Try to catch that video so you see how you know your child's love languages and how to communicate with them using their love languages. And then today we're going to be looking at understanding your children's learning style. Understanding your children's learning style. So if you have anybody that you can invite to join in, honestly, that would be amazing. Now, why do we have to understand our children's learning style? Please let me know where you're connecting from. I want to know who I'm speaking with today. Rosemary from Port Harcourt, you're welcome. So today we're going to be looking at understanding our children's learning style. So what do I mean when I say a child's learning style? The children's learning style basically talks about the way in which your child understands or assimilates information, the way your child easily understands and assimilates information. And their learning styles apply to how best they learn in different settings, whether they are at home or whether they are in school. It's always important for you to have an understanding of your child's learning style for a variety of reasons. First of all, please, if you're on Facebook, and please give StreamYard permission to give comments so we can see your name on the live stream. Thank you very much. So why is it important for you to understand your child's learning style? Like I said, it helps you to know how best they learn, how best they're able to absorb information. And you might not even know how far reaching the learning styles influences everything that they do. Because when you understand their learning styles, you now see why they react in different ways and in different scenarios. There are some children that seem never to be able to sit still. Their parents get so frustrated with them, and they just can't understand why this child will not just be like the other child that is always willing to sit still and watch something or read something or listen to something, not knowing that it is because these children are wired differently. And that is also the reason why you might give the same set of instructions to a group of children, some are able to understand it better than others. Why? Because they have different learning styles, so they're able to interpret information in different ways. So when you know your child's learning style, it's very easy, it's easier for you to help them learn in the way that suits them best. You find out that you save a lot of time, you save a lot of energy, and you maximize their learning output. So understanding your children makes your journey in parenting easier for you. Understanding your children's learning style makes your journey in parenting easier for you because you are able to help them. So like I said, in school, it helps them to learn better. You know, for example, that if a child understands more when he hears or when she hears, it goes without saying that if they pay attention in class, it already helped their learning experience. Likewise, a child, for example, that learns better by what they see will be able to take instructions at home if, for example, is given as charts, as against children that you just dish out instructions to verbally and they are able to run with it. So that is why it's important, even with discipline, because discipline is not punishment. I always say discipline is about training a child. You train a child, that is what discipline means. So I always say before you correct a child, you must have trained the child first. So how do you train your child? You have to be able to communicate instructions, communicate information in a way that they understand, in the way that they're able to assimilate. And when you do that, it's easier for you to follow through with them, to get them to do the things that you want to do. And you're able to communicate better when you know their learning style. So first, their love language plays a role in connecting with them, because connection is the foundation for parenting. Because your relationship with parenting, a parent-child connection is a relationship and it is founded on love. So that's what we had talked about in our previous session, and that's why I said you need to listen to that session. In that session, you understand how to communicate love to your children in a way that they understand. So when you have that connection, it's the foundation for your associations. So you now need to understand how best they learn. So you will not get frustrated with them if it looks like they're not taking in instructions, or you will not get frustrated with them if it looks like they are not doing as well as they should in school. So today I'm going to be looking at three major learning styles. The three major ways in which children learn. And it applies to children of all ages, whether even for adults, you know that there are some things, some strategies, there are some tools, there are some resources that when you deploy, it helps you to learn better. So it applies to people of all ages. Now, people learn through these different learning styles, but in almost every individual, there's a predominant style. Whereas they might have a little bit of this and that, there is a predominant style that works largely for them. So if you're here on this live stream and you are aware of learning styles, I want you to put it up in the chat room. What learning styles? Do you know anything about learning styles? Do you know what the different types of learning styles? If you know, please help me put it out on the comment section. I just want us to be as interactive as possible in this session. Now, if you don't, just hang in there and listen, because as we proceed, I also want you to try to evaluate and see whether you're able to place your children in the different learning styles that they have. So the three learning styles I'm looking at today is the auditory learning style, the visual learning style, and the kinesthetic learning style. Auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. Please help me put it up in the comment section. You have the auditory learners, the visual learners, and the kinesthetic learners. These are the three core learning styles that we are going to look at today. There's still the reading and writing learning style, but the focus for today's session is the auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. I really appreciate if someone can help me put it out there on the comment section. Auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And from the name, I'm sure you have an idea of what these different learning styles represent. The auditory learner is the learner that learns more by what he or she hears. The auditory learner learns more by what he or she hears. Yes, that is our auditory learner. And one thing about the auditory learner is that that kind of learner might not do too well with written instructions. That auditory learner might not do too well with written instructions. So if that child is not careful and the child is writing an examination, the child might be in so much of a hurry to do whatever task that has been given to the child that the child might not be patient enough to read the instructions carefully. That's one thing about the auditory learner. And you find out that with auditory learners, sometimes they might write examinations and they fail some things, but when you ask the child that question, the child is able to say those things that they have failed. So they do well with sound, they do well with listening, and the advantages for them is that they have a broad vocabulary because they connect through speaking and they connect through listening. And some of these children, they participate a lot in class, and if care is not taken and they're not properly managed, they might tend to want to always have their voices heard in class. They might always they're always willing to speak up, and sometimes they might even speak out of turn. But it is also an advantage for them. These kind of learners do well with presentation. They have amazing presentation skills. They have because they do well with speaking. Another thing about auditory learners is that they get easily distracted with other noise in the environment. So when they are studying, you need to either restrict the noise or just maybe have some like background music as the only type of noise or sound in the background. So that is it about auditory learners. So what does it tell you? If auditory learners learn best by hearing, that means that an auditory learner at all costs must be encouraged to focus in class, to be able to pay attention. And I have said before that they get distracted by external noises. So if you know that your child is a child that likes listening, they listen a lot, they love music, they probably might be sound with singing. You hear their vocabulary, their speech, their command for languages. You see also that it's easier for them to learn a second language. They don't forget the things you tell them. They don't forget the things you tell them. That is how they are, because their hearing skills is will I say largely developed. So I want you to think about your children. Do you have an auditory learner? An auditory learner is also likely going to be word smart. In our next edition, we're looking at our children's intelligences. Children, there are different types of intelligences, as it is called by psychologists. So there are some people that are stronger with logical reasoning, some people are stronger with the words literacy and all that. You have people that are stronger with the visual arts. You have people that are stronger with the body, exercise, workout, sports, and things like that. You have people that are stronger with interpersonal relationship, people that are stronger with intrapersonal relationship, people that are strong with music and sound and things like that. So you'll find out that auditory learners will likely be word smart, and they will also likely be good with sound or music. So when you know your child's learning style, it will help you to know your child's strength and your child's area of interest. So auditory learners, they hear and it sticks. They also tend to speak a lot and want their voices to be heard. Now, one thing you will notice is that these auditory learners, are likely to be talkatives. They talk a lot, they express a lot with sound. And one thing that might happen is that they might have the tendency to want to lie. Auditory learners, word smart people, they have the tendency to want to lie. Just because of, I wouldn't say their flippant nature, if I might put it that way. They are always so eager to speak up. So what do you do when you notice that your child is more of an auditory learner, learns a lot by what he or she hears, what she hears takes, loves music, is word smart, has a wide vocabulary range, it's likely that they will have that tendency of wanting to lie. I want to encourage you, dear parents, do not be tempted to shut that auditory learner that might be a talkative down. Try not to shut them down, but try to guide them. There's something I recommend. If you see that you have a child that has a tendency of exaggerating or wants to, let's say, lie or make things up, and you notice it, it is a sign of the child's creativity with words. So rather than, maybe shut the child down, of course, let the child understand that making things up and lying is a no-no. And then also tell them that in the cases where they are tempted to do this, to exaggerate or make things up, that they can just start their statements with, I imagine that. I imagine that. So sometimes they might even get carried away and they start giving those wrong vibes. You can just ask them, is this what happened or is it what you imagined? And then it will help them to correct themselves. So we have to learn how to modulate these children. So how do you help this an auditory learner? If you are a parent and you have auditory learners in your home space, you need to engage with the child as often as possible, talking with the child, because you find out that the child likes speaking. Some of them will have imaginary friends that they want to, if they don't have anybody to speak with, they will have imaginary friends. They also always want to speak with somebody. Be that somebody to them. Always engage them. They like to be listened to. Just try to pay the price of having your ears open to hear them speak, to hear them vent, because if you don't give them that avenue of release, they feel like they are being deprived. Secondly, if you want to give instructions or you want to teach or impart knowledge to them, of course, speaking with them also will help. We give verbal instructions, and you have to get them to probably paraphrase or get them to say what you have told them, just to be sure that they connected with you, because they might be listening to you, but they might not be listening actively. So you have to make sure that they are not distracted when they are listening to you. So you give an instruction and try to get them to say what you have said back to you, so you'll be sure that they actually heard what it is that you are saying. So these are some of the ways. You just have to keep on engaging with them, then give them opportunities to speak, encourage them to speak, help them to hone that skill. That might be where their destiny might lie on tomorrow. Then with regards to their academic studies, the auditory learner might not be too patient with reading, might not be too patient with watching demonstrations. But like I said, the auditory learner, he listens and assimilates. So one thing you can do, for example, is to, you see that they might tend more to want to read aloud. So maybe when they are reading their notes or something, you can get them to, read aloud, and then probably get them to record themselves when they are speaking. So maybe they're reading out their text or something, have it recorded, and then they can listen to themselves over and again. You'll see that they learn more by listening than by reading. So this is a hack that I think you should apply. If you have an auditory learner, the learner might not be very patient with reading a script over and over again. But if you can get them to read and probably record what they are saying, they can listen to themselves over and again, because listening helps them to assimilate information better. Then if they also have the opportunity to explain to other people, it will help them, because they are good with listening, they are good with speaking. So in the process of explaining to other people, they are assimilating even more. You see that auditory learners will do as teachers. Then in school now, we have to encourage these learners to always focus, to pay attention, because once they listen in class, a lot of things stick. If they miss it in class, they lose out a lot too. So like I said, they also get easily distracted by noise. So if you notice that your child is an auditory learner, and it's possible for you to interact with your the teacher, to get the child to sit in an area that he or she will not be distracted. It might be in front of the class, it might be away from friends, but let anything that will constitute noise be removed from around them, so that they'll be able to focus, because what they hear in class goes a long way in helping them. Then another thing is that when they are studying at home, try to limit distractions as well. They shouldn't be reading where there's a lot of noise, people are conversing and all that. Let them be able to focus as much as possible. If there must be any form of sound, let it be music. So I've said earlier that auditory learners might have that mistake of not being settled enough to read instructions. That is one thing that is their problem. So what you could encourage them to do is to, I know that they cannot read out loud in class, maybe especially when they're writing exams, but they could at least try to mouth out their words when they are reading in class, maybe when they're reading instructions. Just mouthing out the words would help them so that they will not miss out on important details in the instructions. Then another thing I'd also advise for people that teach children and teens and all that, try to expose your students to a different testing mechanisms, because some children might be good with writing, others are not good, others are better in oral interviews. So give them an opportunity to express themselves in diverse ways. Now in the world today, we have about 30% of people as auditory learners. I don't know what you have learned so far, but if you can put out what you have caught with regards to auditory learners in the comment section, I would really appreciate that. Then the next set of people that we're going to be looking at are the visual learners. In fact, 65% of learners are visual learners. Like the name says, visual learners learn by what they see. Once they see it, it sticks. 65% of learners in school are actually visual learners. So you find, okay, like auditory learners, they do well with lectures and all that. Visual learners do well with a lot of pictorial representations. They do well with charts. So beyond what you write or what you say, they need to see it. They want you to show them rather than tell them. Show them rather than tell them. Once you have shown them, it gets into their hearts, into their minds. But if you just speak at them, if you just talk at them, they might not be able to grasp as well as when you show them. So for the visual learners, even at home, if you want to teach a visual learner something, you show, you don't just tell. So it's not enough to, like, for example, give a recipe and guidelines. Okay, I want you to go and make scrambled egg for me. Just cut this, got that, do this. No. An auditory learner might hear the instructions and run with the instructions, but not the visual learner. You need to show the visual learner. You don't just tell the visual learner. You need to show the visual learner. You don't just tell the visual learner. So what do you do at home? For any, because I said discipline is a process of training. So you don't correct a child that you have not taught. Now, how do you teach a child? You give verbal instructions, which helps auditory learners very well. Then you also show. If you want a child to learn how to cook or learn how to mop the floor or what have you, you show them. They see you do it. And in seeing you doing it, they are learning. Then if you can have charts in your home, for example, your child might forget to keep to routines, but you have a chart put up somewhere in the room, somewhere strategic, and they're able to quickly see what is expected of them. It helps them to retain instruction. It helps them to retain instruction. So beyond the saying, they say the shortest pen is longer than the longest memory. And this is very true for visual learners. Auditory learners can retain a lot in their memory from what they have heard, but not the visual learner. The visual learner needs that short pen that is longer than the longest memory. They need to see it. And you find out that in a classroom, instructions help them a lot when they see a visual representation, maybe beyond what is written. There are diagrams, there are flow charts, there are videos that are, especially in this era, we have to move from just the traditional means of learning to using audiovisual resources to help the learning experience. So how do you also help the visual learner in the home front. What you can do for the visual learner is that you should encourage the visual learner to use a lot of charts and mind maps when they are studying. When they try to represent an idea, they just don't say it to themselves. An auditory learner can just explain it to him or herself, record it, listen to it, explain it to somebody else, and it sticks. But that is not enough for the visual learner. The visual learner might have to use highlighters to color code their books. So maybe every important point is highlighted in pink, or every what characteristics is highlighted in yellow or something. So with the colors, they connect with the colors, and maybe even when they are trying to recollect or recall what they have learned, they easily use the color to arrange the information in their brain. So using highlighters to highlight key points or to grade levels of information will help them. Another thing that can help them is using flow charts or mind maps to try to connect ideas in their minds. You have what you call concept maps, you have what you have called mind maps, you have what you of course you have charts. So when the visual learner is studying, the visual learner tries to depict what he or she is reading with charts that will help him to have a spatial or visual analysis of those concepts. And the good thing is that in this era of internet and access to a lot of resources, if you see that your child is struggling with a concept and you know that your child is a visual learner, just try to identify resources online that the child can watch that will help the child to retain what he or she might be struggling with. Now, some of other attributes of visual learners is that, first of all, I hope you can still hear me because it looks as if it's hanging. Please let me know if you can still hear me. Okay, so let me just go ahead. I hope that you're still hearing me. Anyway, so for the visual, how you know that your child is a visual learner? A visual learner is always very particular about how he or she looks. A visual learner is always very keen or conscious about colors and all that. A visual learner appreciates artworks and all that a lot too. So if you look at your child, you see your child's dress sense, your child's ability to appreciate the art, your child's attention to big details that he or she sees around him, some things that you might not even pay attention to, but just that your child notices colors, notices some things about the environment that you might not easily pick. That will tell you that that child is likely a visual learner because they are moved a lot by the things that they see. So you just assess your child and then you see whether he or she tends towards being a visual learner. And then the last group of people I'm going to talk about this evening are the kinesthetic learners. I'm sure that there are a lot of us that have complained at one point or the other that I can't just get this child to sit still. This child is always all over the place. The child gets very impatient. The child wants to run. The child wants to play. The child doesn't even want to wait for you to finish giving an instruction before he tries to start implementing the instruction. That child is likely a kinesthetic learner. That is a learner that learns by doing, likes to have the child, his body involved in what he is doing. So when learning becomes monotonous, when he has to sit still for a long time, he loses interest, he becomes bored. So do you have that kind of child? Those children are more of the sporty nature. They always want to be on the move. A lot of boys are kinesthetic learners, particularly when they are younger. They want to be on the move. They learn more by activity. So these are the children that learn with demonstration by actually getting their hands on doing things that they need to do. If you have a kinesthetic learner, don't get your head worked up because you can't seem to get the child to sit still. Try to apply the principle of short bursts of learning. He can just sit for 15 minutes, move around, and come back again. Because if you get him or her to sit for such a long time, they will lose interest. They are not concentrating. You are not getting any output. And the child is also frustrated. So just let them stay for a bit. They can go and then they can come back later. So that's one thing that you can do for the kinesthetic learner. Allow them to learn in short bursts. Then you can also allow them to do more of activities, activity-based learning. They can even use a lot of workbooks rather than getting them to read, get them to do activities, times tests, 10 minutes tests, you assess them, allow them to move around, another 10-minute test and stuff like that. Do you know that any kind of movement helps them to focus better? So even if they are chewing gum or using a fidget spinner, it helps them to be able to assimilate better. So the kinesthetic learner learns by doing. Those kind of children who want to experiment, they want to help you out, they want to help fix things. That is how they learn. They learn more by doing. So even in the home, how you teach them by getting them to do. You don't just get them and start dishing out instructions to them, but involve them in the doing experience. When they get their hands dirty, when they are involved in what it is that is being done, they learn better. So now you find out that if you, by assessment, that you might see that your child might fall into one group or the other. But regardless, you need to use the combination of all these experiences when teaching your children, and also when you're helping them or supporting them with their academic activities. Because when we talk about teaching, it goes beyond the academic activities. We're also talking about what happens in the home front when you're trying to discipline them, when you're trying to train them. So in the training, you want them to learn a skill at home. You speak, that's which helps the auditory learner. You show, which helps the visual learner, and you get them to do, which helps the kinesthetic learner. So these are the three different major learning styles. One thing I want to do is that I'm going to, if you are connected with us on Facebook and you look at the description of this message, you'll see a link asking for your contact information. We are going to share resources that can help you to assess your child to really understand better, because based on the attributes you see, you'll be able to qualify your child as being more of an auditory learner or a visual learner or a kinesthetic learner. And it will help you to know how to engage with them better, how to train them better, and how to help them maximize their learning experience even in school. So this brings us to the end of today's session. I hope I've not bored you too much. I really appreciate to hear what you have learned and what action points you're going to take going forward after this session. And on our next week's edition, like I said earlier, we'll be looking at our children's intelligences. So you'll be able to assess your children, know what their strengths are, so you'll be able to guide them so they don't make the wrong decisions with regards to career and subjects that they do in school and things like that. So this is me signing off now, and I'm wishing you the very best, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for staying through, and God bless you.